I step into the lakeside pavilion of Oak Ridge Gardens and immediately know this was a mistake. Fairy lights shimmer across polished wooden beams, while champagne glasses clink in celebration of a marriage that has outlasted my own time at war. Sarah's hand finds my elbow, steadying me with the gentle pressure of her paramedic's touch. "Breathe, Jamie," she whispers, her eyes assessing me with practiced precision. "You earned your place here." My fingers instinctively trace the scar along my jawline, barely visible now, but a permanent reminder of what I'd survived. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks ago, elegant cream cardstock that seemed out of place among my bills and VA paperwork. Celebrating Ryan and Vanessa Mitchell, 7 years of love. My brother-in-law's name had registered first. I hadn't immediately recognized Vanessa Wilson as my sister. We had different last names now, hers by marriage, mine by choice when I enlisted. "Aunt Jamie, you came!" My niece Lily barrels toward me, all gangly limbs and unrestrained enthusiasm at 9 years old. I catch her with practiced ease, ignoring the protest of muscles still healing from my final deployment. "Easy, kiddo," Sarah cautions, but I wave her concern away. It's been 2 years since medical retirement forced me out of the service, but my best friend still hovers like I might break. Maybe I still might. "I promised I'd be here, didn't I?" I say to Lily, setting her down carefully. Though this tie is definitely trying to strangle me. I tug at the slim black tie that completes my charcoal suit, the only formal wear I own that isn't a uniform I can no longer bring myself to wear. "Mom said you might not come," Lily stage whispers, earnest in the way only children can be. "She said sometimes you're still fighting your war even though you're home." The truth in her innocent words stings more than any shrapnel. "Well, I'm here now," I manage, forcing a smile. "And you've gotten so tall. What are they feeding you?" As Lily chatters about school and her soccer team, I scan the room with the hypervigilance I haven't been able to shake. The pavilion opens onto sweeping lakefront views, strings of lights reflecting off the water's surface like distant stars. About 60 guests mill around, dressed in cocktail attire that makes my suit, while perfectly acceptable, feel somehow inadequate. Then, the crowd shifts slightly and my breath catches. A familiar silhouette appears across the room, champagne flute raised in a toast. Our eyes lock across the space between us. Vanessa. My sister. The champagne flute trembles slightly in her hand, the only visible sign of the earthquake happening between us. I hadn't seen her in 7 years, not since I deployed for the first time after our explosive argument. She looks different, hair shorter and highlighted, figure more refined in her elegant blue dress. Success looks good on her. Behind her, our mother's face drains of color, then flushes crimson. Dad shifts his weight, straightening to his full height. The former high school football coach still imposing at 65. The protective stance is achingly familiar. He'd always positioned himself between Vanessa and anything that might disturb her perfect world, including me. "What is she doing here?" Mother's voice carries just enough for nearby guests to turn with curious eyes. The familiar shame rises in my throat, and for a heartbeat, I'm 24 again, standing in our childhood driveway with a duffel bag at my feet, my enlistment papers burning a hole in my pocket. Sarah steps forward, her voice quiet but firm. "Jamie was invited by Ryan." She doesn't add that it took me weeks to decide to come, that I almost turned around 3 times on the drive here. I hear whispers, see recognition bloom on several faces as they study me more carefully. The scar along my jawline suddenly feels like a spotlight. "That's Captain Wilson," someone murmurs, "from the Helmand Province Rescue." A waiter passing with a tray of hors d'oeuvres nearly stops in his tracks, eyes widening as he takes in my face. I resist the urge to turn away. The Medal of Honor ceremony had been televised, despite my objections. That kind of attention was never what I wanted. Ryan approaches, confusion creasing his brow. His gaze darts between Vanessa's frozen expression and my composed one. "Jamie, you made it," he says, genuine warmth in his voice despite the tension radiating from my sister. "We weren't sure." "Congratulations on 7 years," I say, extending my hand, which he shakes firmly. "That's quite an accomplishment." "Your sister didn't mention you'd be able to come." He directs this statement to me but glances back at Vanessa with a question in his eyes. The moment stretches between us like an unmarked minefield. I could detonate everything right now. Could tell Ryan how Vanessa had returned my RSVP with "family only" scrawled across it in angry red letters. Could mention how she'd told everyone I abandoned the family when I enlisted, how she'd made no effort to contact me even after I was injured. Instead, I simply say, "I wouldn't miss it." Ryan's face relaxes slightly. "Well, we're honored, especially given everything. Your unit's rescue operation was incredible. 3 dozen civilians saved, wasn't it?" I nod stiffly, uncomfortable with the attention shifting toward that day. The blast, the blood, the choices no human should have to make. 37, Sarah corrects quietly beside me. She'd been the flight paramedic who kept me alive on the medical evacuation. Now she was my roommate, my friend, and occasionally, my link to the world when the PTSD pulled me under. Mother approaches, her smile stretched thin across her face. The expensive pearl necklace at her throat rises and falls with a deep breath, armor donned for battle. "Jamie," she says, air kissing near my cheek without making contact. What a surprise. "Hello, Mother." The formal address feels right, maintaining the distance she established years ago. "You look well." "As do you, considering." Her gaze flickers to my scar, then away quickly as if the evidence of my service disturbs her carefully constructed reality. "Jamie saved 3 dozen people," Lily pipes up, having absorbed the earlier conversation with the unfiltered honesty of childhood. "Are you a superhero, Aunt Jamie?" A strangled sound escapes my mother's throat. Dad appears at her elbow, guiding her away with practiced ease. "Let's get you a fresh drink, Diane," he says, not acknowledging me at all. "Not a superhero, kiddo," I tell Lily, kneeling to her level despite the protest in my left knee. "Just did my job." "Is that why you got that scar? Mom said you were in an accident." "An accident? Is that how they've explained away my service? My injuries? The reason their daughter and sister disappeared from family photos for 7 years?" "Something like that," I say, unwilling to burden a child with the complexity of war, of family rifts, that run bone deep. Ryan crouches down beside us. "Lily, why don't you go tell the other kids that it's almost time for cake? They're down by the dock." After she rushes off, Ryan straightens, offering me a hand up that I accept more out of politeness than necessity. "Jamie, I want you to know I sent that invitation myself. Vanessa didn't." He pauses, reconsidering his words. "Things have been complicated, but your family, and this celebration wouldn't be complete without you." The sincerity in his voice catches me off guard. I'd always liked Ryan, from the brief time I'd known him before enlisting. He'd seemed genuine, kind, qualities I hoped had endured through 7 years of marriage to someone who could hold a grudge like it was an Olympic sport. "Thank you for including me," I say, meaning it. "I wasn't sure I'd be welcome." "Of course. You are." But his eyes dart toward where Vanessa stands rigidly across the room, and I know his words, while genuine, aren't completely true. The evening air carries the scent of lake water and pine as guests begin migrating toward elegantly set tables on the terrace. Sarah's hand presses gently against my lower back, a silent question. Stay or go? I'd promised myself I would make an appearance, wish them well, and leave before dinner. 3 hours round trip just to show my face seemed excessive to Sarah, but I understood the importance of thresholds, of showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. But now, watching Vanessa deliberately seat guests to ensure I'm as far from the main table as possible. I wonder if I'm being stubborn rather than brave. Captain Wilson? Is it really you? I turn to find a man in his early 30s extending his hand, eyes bright with recognition. Mike Bennett. You probably don't remember me, but you pulled my brother Thomas out of that collapsed school building. In Helmand. The memory flashes unbidden. Dust thick in the air, support beams groaning, the weight of a young man across my shoulders as I navigated through precarious rubble. One of 37 that day. One of the ones who made it. Thomas was the teacher, I say, the details surfacing. He refused to leave until we'd found all his students. Mike's face breaks into a wide smile. That's him. He's teaching in Chicago now, partly because of you. Says if you could risk everything for strangers, the least he could do was keep making a difference. He pulls out his phone, showing me a photo of a smiling man with a group of inner-city teenagers. He's alive because of you. Across the room, Vanessa watches this exchange, her expression unreadable. She shifts, angling her body away from us, the gesture so familiar it almost makes me smile. The classic Vanessa move. If she doesn't look directly at something, perhaps it will cease to exist. Your sister never mentioned her hero sibling, Mike continues, oblivious to the tension. Ryan's mentioned your family is from Portland, but never that his sister-in-law is the Captain Wilson. I glance at Ryan, who has the decency to look uncomfortable. It's not something I discuss much myself, I offer. A lifeline to preserve whatever fiction Vanessa has constructed about her family. Well, you should, Mike says firmly. What you did, running back into that building multiple times when everyone else was running out, that changed lives. My family says prayers of gratitude for you every Thanksgiving. Sarah squeezes my elbow gently, knowing how these conversations affect me. The word hero has always felt misplaced, especially when attached to the worst day of my life. I didn't feel heroic pulling bodies, some alive, some not, from the wreckage. I felt terrified, determined, and later, broken. I appreciate that, I say carefully. But I was just doing my job like any other soldier would have. Jamie. My sister's voice cuts through the ambient chatter like a blade tempered in ice. I turn to find her standing behind me, her smile so brittle it might shatter if touched. Vanessa, I return evenly. Congratulations on your anniversary. Her eyes flicker to my scar momentarily before focusing on some point beyond my shoulder. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to greet you properly. Hosting duties. The artificial warmth in her voice would be convincing to anyone who hadn't grown up decoding her every mood. But I recognize the slight tightness around her eyes, the way her fingers clench her champagne flute a fraction too firmly. She's furious that I'm here, disrupting the carefully curated image she's built of her life. Of course, I reply smoothly. You've put together a beautiful celebration. Mike looks between us, confusion evident. You two are sisters? He asks, the pieces not quite fitting together in his mind. Yes, Vanessa answers before I can. Jamie is my younger sister. By 18 months, I add, an old reflex from childhood, when Vanessa would emphasize her elder status as if it granted her special authority. Barely enough to notice. And you never mentioned your sister as Captain Jamie Wilson? Mike presses, his tone light, but the question pointed. Vanessa's smile doesn't falter, though something flashes in her eyes. Jamie is very private about her service. She places subtle emphasis on the word private, a warning I recognize from childhood. Some things aren't discussed outside the family. Apparently not private enough. Mother's voice interjects as she joins our circle, champagne glass in hand. Jamie's face was all over the news. Most inconvenient timing, right before Lily's school fundraiser. Everyone asking questions we couldn't answer. The casual cruelty of her words lands like a physical blow. Not concern for my injuries or pride in lives saved, but annoyance at the social inconvenience my recognition caused them. I'll try to schedule my next life-threatening situation with your social calendar in mind, I say, the words escaping before I can filter them. Sarah coughs quietly beside me, a gentle reminder to maintain composure. She's seen the aftermath of my family encounters before, the nightmares that follow, the hypervigilance that takes days to subside. Mother's face hardens. Always so dramatic, Jamie. This is exactly why… Diane. My father's voice cuts through, whatever she was about to say. He appears beside her, hand firmly on her elbow. They're requesting family photos by the lake before losing the natural light. His eyes meet mine briefly, and for a moment, I think I see something like regret flicker across his face. But it's gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Will you be joining us for the family photo, Jamie? He asks, his tone neutral but not unkind, the most warmth he's shown me in 7 years. Before I can answer, Mother interjects. Oh, I don't think… Jamie wouldn't want… Her scar might not photograph well. The words hang in the air between us, stunning in their transparency. My hand unconsciously rises to my jawline before I force it back down. Actually, Ryan says, stepping forward with a firmness that suggests this isn't the first time he's navigated these waters. We'd like Jamie in the photos. She's family. Vanessa's expression tightens further, but she says nothing to contradict. Her husband. Instead, she turns abruptly toward the lake, expecting everyone to follow as they always have. As our small group moves toward the photographer setting up near the water's edge, I feel the weight of 7 years of silence pressing against my chest. The weight of things said and unsaid, of expectations unmet and paths diverged. Sarah hangs back as we approach the photography area. I'll wait here, she says quietly. Text if you need extraction. Our private joke, treating family functions like combat operations requiring tactical planning, brings a small smile to my face despite everything. Copy that, I murmur. Maintain radio contact. When I take my position at the edge of the family group, slightly apart as if my presence might contaminate the perfect family image, I notice Lily watching me intently. She breaks away from her position front and center, darting to my side and slipping her small hand into mine. Lily? Vanessa calls, her voice strained. Come back to your spot, sweetheart. I want to stand with Aunt Jamie, Lily declares with the magnificent conviction of childhood. She's a hero, and I never get to see her. The simple truth in her words creates a fissure in the carefully maintained facade. For a moment, no one speaks. Then Ryan steps forward, rearranging the group. That's a good idea, Lily. Let's have Aunt Jamie right here beside you. He positions me closer to the center than I'd placed myself, not in the periphery where my sister and parents clearly expected me to remain. As the photographer counts down, I stand straight-backed in my charcoal suit, the tie suddenly feeling less constrictive. 7 years since I've appeared in a family photo. 7 years of birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries unmarked by my presence. The camera flash captures a moment of superficial unity. Smiles fixed in place, bodies arranged. In artificial closeness, it can't capture the chasms between us or the journey that brought me here. It won't show the medal locked in my dresser drawer at home, or the nights I wake gasping for air, sand and blood still vivid in my dreams. But Lily's small hand remains, firmly in mine, warm and anchoring, a bridge across 7 years of silence. And for now, that's enough to keep me standing here, breathing evenly, facing the family who couldn't understand why I had to leave or who I became while I was gone. Dinner is served on the terrace overlooking the lake, tables dressed in ivory, linens with centerpieces of blue hydrangeas and floating candles. The food is elegant but forgettable. I've eaten MREs with more memorable flavors. What stands out is the choreography of avoidance. My parents and Vanessa perform an intricate dance of pretending I'm not there while ensuring everyone else knows I am. I'm seated at what can only be described as the exile table. far from the main party, populated by Ryan's distant cousins and colleagues who look as confused by their placement as I feel. Sarah sits beside me, expertly deflecting awkward questions with the same calm she once used to tell wounded soldiers they'd be okay, even when we both knew they wouldn't. "So, you were a paramedic in the military?" asks a woman whose name I've already forgotten, her curiosity genuine but misplaced. "Air Force Pararescue," Sarah corrects with practiced ease. "Jamie here was Army, though. Special Forces." I shoot her a look. We'd agreed to keep conversation light, avoid military talk when possible. Civilians never know how to respond. They either get uncomfortable or ask questions we'd rather not answer. But Sarah has decided, apparently, that continuing to downplay, "My service is no longer the plan." "Special Forces?" The man across from us perks up. "My nephew's trying to get into the Rangers. Any advice I can pass along?" "Learn to sleep standing up," I reply, reaching for my water. "And invest in good socks. Everything else they'll teach him." The table laughs, relieved by my casual response. It's easier than telling them the truth. That the skills that kept me alive aren't dinner conversation material. That the weight of decisions made in split seconds can haunt you for years. That sometimes the hardest part isn't the deployment, but coming home to people who want the person you were before. Across the pavilion, I catch Vanessa watching me, her mouth a tight line as she registers the laughter at our table. Whatever narrative she's constructed about my absence clearly doesn't include me being functional, let alone capable of social niceties. "Jamie was top of her class," Sarah continues, ignoring my warning glance. "Set some records that still stand." "Sarah," I murmur, "I'm sure no one wants to hear—" "Actually, I'd love to hear," Ryan interrupts, appearing at our table with a bottle of wine. He tops off glasses with practiced hospitality, but his presence here is deliberate. "We don't know much about Jamie's military career. The unspoken, 'because no one asked,' hangs in the air between us. Not much to tell," I deflect. "Joined up after college, did my job, got out when it was time." Ryan settles into an empty chair, a casual action that carries weight. His choice to sit at the exile table won't go unnoticed by my sister. "That scar looks like it came with a story," one of his cousins says, gesturing vaguely toward my face. The table falls silent, the breach of etiquette palpable. Sarah's hand finds my knee under the table, a silent offer of support. But I've had 2 years of therapy to learn how to talk about that day without seeing it all over again. Most of the time, it works. IED, I say simply. We were extracting civilians from a school building that had been hit in an earlier strike. Secondary device detonated during the final evacuation. I don't mention how the blast threw me 20 feet, how I woke to the taste of blood and dust, how the ringing in my ears still hasn't fully subsided. "That was the Helmand operation," Ryan says quietly. "The one that was all over the news. 37 civilians saved." 37, I confirm, meeting his eyes. Something passes between us, recognition perhaps of the cost behind that number. "And a Medal of Honor," Sarah adds, her loyalty overriding my preference for discretion. First woman in her unit to receive it. The table falls silent, eyes wide. Ryan's expression shifts from interest to something deeper, respect tinged with confusion. "I didn't know," he says finally. "No reason you would," I reply, keeping my voice even. "It's not something I advertise." "But your family—" He trails off, realizing the implication of his own words. If Vanessa knew, she chose not to tell him. If my parents knew, they decided their son-in-law didn't need to know his sister-in-law was a decorated war hero. As if summoned by the unspoken tension, Vanessa appears at Ryan's shoulder, her hand possessively finding the back of his neck. "There you are," she says, pointedly addressing her husband rather than acknowledging me. "The Hendersons are asking about that property in Aspen." Ryan doesn't move immediately. Did you know Jamie received the Medal of Honor? He asks, his tone carefully neutral. My sister's fingers tighten slightly on his shoulder. I saw something on the news, she says dismissively. You know how they sensationalize these things. Sensationalize, Sarah repeats, the word dangerously soft. I place my hand over hers on my knee, a silent warning. This isn't the time or place. The ceremony was at the White House, Ryan continues, either oblivious to or deliberately ignoring the tension. That seems significant. Vanessa's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Jamie's always had a flair for the dramatic. Remember when she enlisted without telling anyone? Just left a note and disappeared for basic training. The table has gone uncomfortably quiet, the other guests suddenly fascinated by their desserts. That's not exactly how I begin, but Vanessa cuts me off. The Hendersons, Ryan, she insists. They're waiting. Ryan hesitates, glancing between us. We'll talk more later, he tells me before reluctantly rising to follow my sister. The dramatic one in your family isn't you, Sarah mutters once they're out of earshot. I manage a tight smile. 7 years of practice cementing her version of events. Can't really blame her. Actually, I can, Sarah counters. And I do. That Medal of Honor citation read like a thriller movie. You ran into a collapsing building 5 separate times to extract civilians, continued the mission despite sustaining injuries, and carried out 2 children while bleeding from shrapnel wounds. If my sister did that, I'd be telling everyone I met. I stare out at the lake, where the last light of day burnishes the water gold. Vanessa and I were never close that way. She needed to be the star. A memory surfaces, unbidden. Vanessa at 17, furious because I'd been accepted to the same college she'd chosen. Can't you go somewhere else? She'd demanded. You're going to follow me there and try to do everything I do, just like you always have. The irony is I'd never followed her path. She was the social butterfly, the homecoming queen, the perfect daughter fulfilling our parents' every expectation. I was the quiet one who joined ROTC against their wishes, who found purpose in service when family approval proved impossible to earn. Aunt Jamie! Lily appears at my elbow, breathless with excitement. Mom says it's time for the anniversary toast, and I told her you should do it since you came all the way here just for them. I freeze, Sarah's quick intake of breath mirroring my panic. Public speaking isn't the issue. I've briefed generals and politicians, but an anniversary toast for a sister who clearly wishes I hadn't come? Lily, I don't think... Please? Her small hand tugs at my sleeve. I told everyone my aunt is a hero, and heroes give the best speeches. Behind her, I see my mother approaching with purpose, no doubt to shut down this potential disruption to their carefully orchestrated evening. Lieutenant Colonel Wilson, a deep voice interrupts. I turn to find an older man in a perfectly tailored suit extending his hand. Jack Harrington, I believe you served with my son Marcus. The name hits like a physical blow. Marcus Harrington. His face flashes in my memory, broad smile, steady hands, the calm voice that talked us through the extraction plan in Helmand. Sir, I manage, rising to shake his hand. Your son was an extraordinary soldier. And a dear friend, Sarah adds softly, standing beside me. He wrote about both of you, Mr. Harrington says, eyes bright with unshed tears. Said Captain Wilson was the best commander he'd ever served under. That if anyone could get them all home, it would be you. I swallow hard. Marcus didn't make it home. He was the last one in the building, securing the exit route for me as I carried out the final 2 children. The secondary blast took him instantly, the same one that left me, with the scar and a collection of internal injuries that ended my career. I failed him, I say quietly. No. Mr. Harrington's grip on my hand tightens. My son died doing exactly what he believed in. His last letter home said he'd finally found his purpose, that serving under your command showed him what it meant to lead with both strength and compassion. He reaches into his jacket, producing a small, worn photograph. "I've been hoping to find you. Marcus would want you to have this." The photo shows our unit, taken just weeks before the Helmand operation. We're dusty and tired but smiling, arms slung around each other's shoulders with the easy camaraderie of people who trust each other with their lives. Marcus stands beside me, giving the camera a thumbs up. "I don't understand," my mother interjects, having reached our group in time to witness the exchange. "How do you know my daughter?" "My son served under her command," Mr. Harrington replies, a note of pride evident. "She's the reason 37 families didn't bury their loved ones that day in Helmand." Mother's carefully composed expression wavers. "Jamie never discusses her employment history." She says it like I'd been a cashier at a convenience store rather than a special forces officer. "Jamie is delivering the anniversary toast," Lily announces, oblivious to the undercurrents. "Because she's a hero." "Oh, I don't think that's appropriate," Mother begins, but Mr. Harrington interrupts. "A toast from a decorated officer would be quite an honor," he says firmly. "My wife and I would certainly appreciate it." I glance around, suddenly aware that our conversation has drawn attention. Nearby guests have quieted, watching the exchange with interest. Across the terrace, Vanessa stands rigid beside Ryan, her expression a mixture of disbelief and alarm. "Lily, honey," I say gently, crouching to my niece's level. "I think your parents probably have someone else planned for the toast, someone who knows them better." "But your family," she insists with the flawless logic of childhood. "And you never get to talk at family things because you're always gone." The simple truth of her statement lands heavily. I have been gone, first by choice, then by duty, and finally by exclusion. Ryan approaches, champagne flute in hand. "Actually," he says, having overheard the exchange, "I think a toast from Jamie would be perfect." Vanessa appears at his side, her smile brittle. "Ryan, we discussed this. Your best man from the wedding is doing the toast. It's all arranged." "Plans change," he replies easily, but there's an edge to his voice I haven't heard before. "Jamie came a long way to be here. I'd like to hear what she has to say." A silent battle of wills passes between them before Vanessa relents, her concession graceless but final. "Fine." A brief toast before the official one. And suddenly I find myself being led to the center of the terrace, a champagne flute pressed into my hand, dozens of curious eyes tracking my movement. Sarah gives me a thumbs up from our table, her expression both supportive and concerned. Standing before these strangers and estranged family members, I feel oddly calm. I've briefed generals under enemy fire. I've made split-second decisions. With lives in the balance, a toast is nothing. "For those who don't know me," I begin, my voice carrying across the now silent terrace. "I'm Jamie Wilson, Vanessa's sister." I pause, seeing surprise register on several faces. Military service has kept me away from family gatherings for too long, so I'm grateful for the invitation to celebrate Vanessa and Ryan's 7 years together. I look at the couple, Ryan attentive, Vanessa guarded, and find myself speaking not the polite pleasantries I'd planned, but something truer. 7 years mark something significant. In the military, we talk about the first 7 years as the crucible, the period that either breaks you or forges you into something stronger. Those who make it through have proven their commitment, their resilience, their ability to adapt and grow through challenges. I raise my glass slightly. I may have missed seeing your relationship develop over these years, but standing here tonight, it's clear you've built something that matters. Ryan, thank you for reminding me what family can mean. And Vanessa, I meet my sister's eyes directly. We may have walked different paths, but I've never stopped carrying you with me. Congratulations on your 7 years. May there be many more. The applause that follows feels genuine, if somewhat confused. As I step away from the center, Mr. Harrington nods approval, and Lily beams with pride. My parents' expressions remain carefully neutral, but I notice my father watching me with something that might be reassessment. Ryan reaches me first, pulling me into an unexpected embrace. "Thank you," he says quietly. That meant a lot. When he releases me, Vanessa stands just behind him, her composure slightly fractured. For a moment, I glimpse the sister I knew before everything changed. The one who taught me to ride a bike, who snuck into my room with ice cream after I failed a math test, who once knew me better than anyone. "Nice speech," she says, her voice carefully modulated. Brief, as promised. "I've had practice being concise," I reply. "Battlefield communications require it." She flinches almost imperceptibly at the reference to my service. "Yes, well, I suppose you found your calling." The words could be interpreted as supportive, but I recognize the subtle barb. "Found your calling far away from us" is what she means. Not a calling, I correct gently. A duty. One I took seriously. Seriously enough to abandon your family without a word? The question slips out, sharper than she likely intended, revealing the wound still festering beneath 7 years of silence. "I left a letter," I say quietly, "and made 17 phone calls that first year, all unanswered." Vanessa's expression flickers. "You chose a dangerous path without consulting anyone who cared about you. What did you expect? Support, maybe. Or at least understanding." I keep my voice low, aware of the celebration continuing around us. "I didn't choose the army to hurt you, Vanessa. I chose it because I believed in the purpose it gave me. You chose it because you couldn't stand living in my shadow anymore," she counters, the words rushing out as if she's held them back for years. "You had to do something dramatic, something that would make everyone notice you instead of me for once." The accusation stings because it contains a grain of truth. Not that I joined the military for attention, but that I'd grown tired of invisibility within my own family. If that were true, I say carefully, I would have made sure everyone knew about this. I gesture subtly to my jawline where the scar traces its path, or the medal, or the 37 lives. But I didn't send a single news clipping home. Not one. "Mom and Dad saw it anyway," she says, glancing toward our parents, who are performing their roles as perfect hosts with practiced ease. "Do you have any idea what it was like? Everyone suddenly asking about you, the daughter they never mentioned because it hurt too much to talk about why you left." "Hurt too much?" I repeat, disbelief creeping into my voice. "They told people it hurt too much to talk about me?" Vanessa nods, conviction in her eyes. What were they supposed to say? That their youngest daughter abandoned her family to play soldier? That she cut off all contact the moment she left? A chill settles over me as I realize the depth of the narrative they've constructed. In their version, I am the villain of the Faye story. The ungrateful daughter who abandoned them, not the one they disowned for choosing a path they didn't approve of. "That's not what happened," I say, fighting to keep my voice steady. "You know that's not what happened." For just a moment, uncertainty crosses Vanessa's face. Then her expression hardens again. "What I know is that you left without saying goodbye. And now you show up after 7 years with your impressive career and your medal and your dramatic scar, and suddenly you're the center of attention at my anniversary celebration." Before I can respond, Ryan returns with the best man in tow, ready for the official toast. Vanessa seamlessly transitions back into the role of gracious hostess, the mask of perfection sliding back into place as if our conversation never happened. I drift back toward Sarah, the weight of my sister's words, settling heavily. The version of events my family has constructed explains so much. The unanswered phone calls, the returned letters, the complete silence after my injury. They've spent 7 years believing I abandoned them, while I spent those same years believing they rejected me for following my own path. The truth, as always, likely lies somewhere in between. "You okay?" Sarah asks as I rejoin her. I take a long sip of champagne before answering. I think I just realized this might be harder to fix than I thought. Her hand finds mine, squeezing gently. Family usually is. Around us, the celebration continues, the best man's toast drawing genuine laughter and applause. I stand at the periphery, physically present but separate, watching the family that might have been mine if different choices had been made on both sides. 7 years of stories I've missed. 7 years of holidays spent with my unit instead of around my parents' table. 7 years in which the simple understanding of who left whom has been slowly twisted into something unrecognizable. Lily finds me again as the dancing begins, her small hand slipping trustingly into mine. Will you dance with me, Aunt Jamie? Mom says my uncles are supposed to dance with me at fancy parties, but I don't have any uncles. I'd be honored, I tell her, allowing myself to be led to the dance floor. As we sway awkwardly to the music, her feet on top of mine to guide her steps, I catch Vanessa watching us, her expression unreadable in the soft glow of string lights. For just a moment, our eyes meet across the crowded terrace, and I see something flicker there. Not quite regret, not quite acceptance, but perhaps the first recognition that the story we've both been telling ourselves might not be the whole truth. It's not reconciliation. It's barely even acknowledgement. But after 7 years of silence, it feels like the first breath after being underwater. Painful, gasping, but alive with possibility. The celebration winds down near midnight, guests drifting away in pairs and small groups, exchanging embraces and promises to meet soon. I stand at the edge of the terrace, watching moonlight ripple across the lake while Sarah makes a final trip to the restroom before our drive home. You're not staying? Ryan's voice startles me from my thoughts. I turn to find him holding 2 tumblers of amber liquid, offering one to me. We booked a hotel about 30 minutes away, I explain, accepting. The drink. The whiskey burns pleasantly, expensive and smooth. There's plenty of room here, he says, gesturing toward the resort's main building. The whole family is staying the weekend. The whole family. I catch the significance in his words, the deliberate inclusion. I think one night of Wilson family, togetherness is all any of us can handle, I reply, attempting lightness. Ryan studies me over the rim of his glass. Vanessa never told me what happened between you two. Between you and her parents. I knew she had a sister in the military, but the way she spoke about you, it was always past tense, like you were gone. In her mind, I was. I take another sip of whiskey, weighing how much to share with this man who is both family and stranger. I joined the army against my parents' wishes. They had different plans for me. Medical school, following in my father's footsteps. When I chose my own path, they chose to see it as rejection. And Vanessa? I shrug, the motion pulling at old scar tissue across my shoulder. Vanessa sided with them. She always did. Ryan nods slowly, processing this. She's not as strong as you never had to be. The simple assessment surprises me with its accuracy. Vanessa, for all her social confidence and perfect poise, has always been fragile in ways that matter, dependent on approval, desperate for validation, terrified of disappointment. She built a life that made sense to her, I say, more generous than I feel. One that pleased our parents. A life that's more performance than substance sometimes, Ryan admits quietly, then looks immediately guilty for the confession. I love her, but these events, the constant need to impress, to be seen as successful, it exhausts her. Exhausts us both. I study him more carefully, noting the fine lines of stress around his eyes, the way his shoulders carry tension even, in supposed relaxation. Yet you've made it 7 years. Yes. He smiles, genuine warmth breaking through fatigue. She has qualities people don't see at gatherings like this. She volunteers at a literacy program for kids, remembers everyone's birthdays, cries at sappy commercials. His eyes drift across the terrace to where Vanessa stands with the last departing guests. She's more than this performance. I'm glad, I say, meaning it, that you see those parts of her. I wish you could see them too. Ryan's directness catches me off guard. Stay the weekend. Give all of you, a chance to move beyond whatever happened 7 years ago. Before I can formulate a response, Sarah appears at my elbow, car keys in hand. Ready when you are, Captain. Ryan raises an eyebrow. Captain? I thought... Force of habit, Sarah says smoothly. Jamie made lieutenant colonel before medical retirement, but some of us old-timers haven't adjusted our vocabulary. Ryan's expression shifts to genuine surprise. Lieutenant colonel at, what, 31? 30, I correct automatically. Then, regret the precision. It sounds like boasting. Rapid advancement track, Sarah explains, her pride evident. Someone noticed she had a talent for getting impossible things done with minimal casualties. Ryan whistles low. And here Vanessa told me you were doing okay in the Army. He shakes his head slowly. I've spent 7 years with incomplete information about my sister-in-law. The realization settles between us, heavy with implications. How much else has Vanessa filtered, minimized, or simply omitted about me to maintain her narrative? You should stay, Ryan says again, more firmly this time. Tomorrow's just family. Brunch, boat ride on the lake, time to actually talk. I glance at Sarah, who shrugs slightly. Her way of saying it's my call, but she'll support whatever I decide. One night, I concede finally. We'll need to head back tomorrow afternoon. I have a VA appointment Monday morning. Ryan's face brightens. I'll tell the front desk to prepare rooms for you both. He claps me gently on the shoulder as he passes, headed toward the main building. You sure about this? Sarah asks once he's out of earshot. I drain the last of the whiskey, savoring the burn. No, but running away didn't fix anything the first time. We find Vanessa at the edge of the terrace, supervising staff as they clear the last of the glassware. She tenses visibly when she spots us approaching. Ryan's arranging rooms for us, I say without preamble. We're staying tonight. Surprise flickers across her face before the mask of polite hostess returns. How nice. Though I'm sure you'll find things a bit quiet compared to what you're used to. The comment could be innocent, but the slight emphasis on what you're used to carries judgment. As if my life has been one of constant chaos and violence, an existence so fundamentally different from her civilized world that I couldn't possibly appreciate the genteel tedium of family recreation. I like quiet these days, I reply simply. An awkward silence stretches between us, filled with unspoken accusations and unasked questions. Finally, Vanessa gestures vaguely toward the main building. Lily will be pleased you're staying. She's been full of questions about her mysterious aunt. The mention of my niece softens something in me. She's incredible. You've done well with her. Vanessa's expression thaws slightly at the compliment to her parenting. She's stubborn, independent. Reminds me of... She trails off, but the comparison hangs in the air between us. I should check on our rooms, I say, unwilling to acknowledge the almost compliment. 7 years of silence won't be undone by one night of forced proximity. Vanessa nods stiffly. Breakfast is at 9, though I imagine you're still on military time, up with the dawn and all that. Some habits stick, I concede. The insomnia, the hypervigilance, the inability to sleep past 0500 no matter how exhausted I am. These are souvenirs of service I didn't choose to keep but can't seem to discard. Well, we'll see you when we see you, she says, already turning away, conversation dismissed. Sarah and I make our way to the resort's main building, where Ryan has secured adjoining rooms overlooking the lake. The accommodations are luxurious. Plush carpeting, king-sized beds, marble bathrooms stocked with high-end toiletries. Your sister married well, Sarah observes, testing the mattress with an appreciative bounce. Think we could steal these robes? Smile despite my exhaustion. Pretty sure that's frowned upon. Speaking of frowning, what's the plan for tomorrow? Full family immersion or strategic retreat after breakfast? I sit heavily on the bed, suddenly aware of every aching muscle and old injury. Let's see how breakfast goes. I'm not opposed to the strategic retreat option. Sarah eyes me with the clinical assessment she's never fully abandoned since our days in the field. You're tired, and not just physically. It's been a long day. A long 7 years, she corrects gently. You don't have to fix everything tomorrow. Or ever, really. I know she's right. Some rifts can't be mended, some misunderstandings run too deep for easy resolution. But something about seeing Lily, about the unexpected warmth from Ryan, about the momentary glimpse of my actual sister beneath Vanessa's polished exterior, it sparked a dangerous hope that perhaps not everything is irreparably broken. Get some sleep, Sarah says, heading for the connecting door to her room. Doctor's orders. But sleep proves elusive, as it often does. I lie awake, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, replaying fragments of conversations and watching shadows shift across the room as clouds pass over the moon. Around 04:30, I give up the pretense of rest and change into running clothes. The pre-dawn air is crisp with early autumn, mist rising from the lake in ghostly tendrils. I stretch briefly on the resort's manicured lawn before setting off along a path that circles the water. The steady rhythm of feet against earth, the controlled pattern of breath, these have become my meditation, my therapy, my way of processing. When words fail, I'm on my second lap, the eastern sky just beginning to lighten, when I spot a figure at the small dock that extends into the lake. Even in silhouette, I recognize my father's broad shoulders, the military straight posture he's maintained since his own brief service decades ago. For a moment, I consider altering my route to avoid him, but something propels me forward instead, slowing my pace as I approach. He turns at the sound of my footsteps on the wooden planks, unsurprised by my presence. You still run! Every day I can, I confirm, keeping a careful distance between us. He nods once, approval unspoken, but evident. Running was the one thing we shared, the only activity he encouraged in me as enthusiastically as he did in Vanessa. In high school, I was the track star while Vanessa excelled at everything else. Your knee healed well, he observes, glancing at my leg. Your mother mentioned the injury was severe. I'm startled by the revelation that they discussed my injuries at all. Multiple surgeries, good doctors. Military doctors? At first, then specialists at Walter Reed. I shift my weight, uncomfortable with his scrutiny. The VA has been decent, for follow-up care. He looks out across the lake, his profile sharp against the brightening sky. I saw the ceremony, on television. My heart rate accelerates in a way that has nothing to do with physical exertion. I didn't know. Your mother couldn't watch, said it was too difficult. His voice remains neutral, factual. I recorded it anyway. I don't know what to do with this information, with the image of my father secretly watching as the president hung the Medal of Honor around my neck, while my mother retreated to another room, unable to bear the sight. The citation mentioned 37 civilians, he continues. Children among them. Yes. And one lost team member. Marcus Harrington, I say, the name still difficult to voice. My father nods slowly. His father seems like a good man. He is. Silence stretches between us, filled only with the gentle lapping of water against the dock and distant birdsong. When he finally speaks again, his voice carries a weight I've never heard before. We told ourselves you were safer than you were, that your assignments were routine, administrative, that the Army wouldn't send a woman, wouldn't send our daughter, into the situations we read about in the news. He turns to face me fully. We were wrong. The admission catches me off guard, as does the emotion barely contained beneath his carefully controlled expression. I never wanted you to worry, I say, an automatic response that feels immediately inadequate. That wasn't your job. For the first time, there's a crack in his composure. Our job was to worry about you, to support you. We failed. My throat tightens unexpectedly. Of all the scenarios I'd imagined for this weekend, my father's acknowledgement of failure wasn't among them. I made my choices. I managed, finally. And we made ours. He looks down at his hands, strong and capable hands that set countless broken bones in his medical practice, but couldn't reach across the chasm to his youngest daughter. When we heard about your injury, your mother wanted to go to you. I told her you had the army, that they would take care of their own, that you didn't need us anymore. That wasn't true, I whisper, the admission costing me more than I expected. I know that now. His eyes, so like my own, meet mine directly. I was a coward, Jamie. Too proud to admit we were wrong to cut you off, too afraid to face what your service really meant, what you were really doing over there. The early morning light catches on the moisture in his eyes, turning it golden. My own vision blurs in response. Why now? I ask, the question that's been circling since I received the invitation. Why after 7 years? Lily, he says simply. She found old photos, started asking questions about her Aunt Jamie who looked so much like her, wanted to know why she'd never met you. He shakes his head slowly. We had no good answers, only excuses that sounded hollow even to us. The thought of my niece, curious and persistent, unknowingly bridging a gap that adults had deemed uncrossable, brings a small smile to my face. She's something special. Yes. Pride softens his stern features. Reminds me of you at that age. Questions everything. Never takes no for an answer. He hesitates, then adds quietly, she'd like to know you, if you're willing. The implication hangs between us. Not just permission to be part of Lily's life, but an invitation to reconnect with the family I've been separated from for so long. I'd like that, I say carefully, not committing beyond this simple truth. My father nods once, decisive. Breakfast at 9. Your mother will be... She'll try, in her way, which means strained politeness and careful avoidance of anything consequential. But it's more than I expected 24 hours ago. I'll be there. I check my watch, instinct from years of time training runs. I should finish my route. He steps aside to let me pass, then surprises me by placing a hand briefly on my shoulder, a gesture so unexpected I nearly flinch. I'm proud of you, Jamie. I should have said that years ago. The words follow me as I continue around the lake, my pace uneven as I struggle to process what just happened. By the time I return to the resort, the sun has fully risen, and early rising. Guests have begun to appear on the terrace for coffee. Sarah is awake when I return to our rooms, dressed and reviewing emails on her tablet. Productive run? She asks, noting my flushed face. Unexpected, I reply, heading for the shower. I ran into my father at the lake. Her eyebrows rise. Literally or figuratively? Figuratively. We talked. That's good? I'm not sure yet. I pause at the bathroom door. But we're having breakfast with the family. Sarah's surprise shifts to cautious optimism. I'll break out the fancy shirt I packed just in case. Under the hot spray of the shower, I replay my father's words, searching for hidden barbs or conditions I might have missed. But all I find is the simple, devastating acknowledgement of failure and the tentative extension of an olive branch. It's not reconciliation. It's not even forgiveness on either side. But it's a beginning where I'd assumed there could only be an end. By the time we make our way to the terrace for breakfast, most of the family has already gathered. Lily spots us first, waving enthusiastically from a table laden with pastries and fruit. "Aunt Jamie, you stayed." She bounces in her seat, patting the empty chair beside her. "Mom said you might have left already, but I told her heroes always keep their promises." Vanessa shoots her daughter a warning look, but manages a tight smile in my direction. "Good morning? Sleep well?" "Well enough," I reply, taking the indicated seat beside Lily. Sarah settles across from me, next to my mother, who acknowledges her with a brittle nod. "Jamie was up at dawn," my father comments, passing a basket of muffins. "Still keeping military hours." Some habits are hard to break. I agree, selecting a blueberry muffin more for something to do with my hands than from actual hunger. "Do you still have to do push-ups every morning?" Lily asks, eyes wide with fascination. "Mom said soldiers have to do like 100 push-ups before breakfast." I smile despite myself. Not 100. But yes, I still exercise every morning. Can. "You teach me?" "I want to be strong like you," Vanessa interjects quickly. Lily, remember we talked about Aunt Jamie's visit being short. She probably doesn't have time for— "I'd be happy to show you some exercises," I say, meeting my sister's gaze directly. "If that's okay with your parents." Ryan, who has been quietly observing this exchange, nods. "Of course it is. Maybe after breakfast?" Vanessa's lips press into a thin line, but she doesn't contradict her husband. Instead, she turns the conversation to safer topics: the weather, the upcoming school year, the renovation project they've just completed on their home in Portland. I listen more than I speak, watching the family dynamics unfold around me. My mother remains mostly silent, occasionally offering a comment about the food or responding directly when addressed. My father makes deliberate efforts to include me, asking questions about where I live now, my physical therapy progress, my plans for the future. "I've been consulting with a few security firms," I explain when he inquires about my work. "Analyzing high-risk extraction scenarios, training teams on civilian protection protocols, using my experience in ways that don't involve getting shot at." "Sounds fascinating," Ryan says, genuine interest in his voice. "Is that fulfilling after what you did before?" The question isn't one I expected, especially not at a family breakfast. Most people assume any civilian work would be preferable to combat deployment. "Different kind of fulfillment," I answer honestly. "Less immediate, more sustainable. I still get to save lives, just in more theoretical ways." "Jamie's being modest," Sarah interjects. "Her protocols have already been implemented by 3 international NGOs. Aid workers in conflict zones are literally alive because of her training programs." Vanessa studies me across the table with an expression I can't quite read. "You always did like fixing broken systems," she says finally. "Even as a kid." The observation startles me with its accuracy and the fact that she remembered this detail about me after so many years. I'd been the one who reorganized the household chore chart to make it more efficient, who developed a study system our high school eventually adopted, who couldn't see a problem without immediately considering solutions. "Some things don't change," I acknowledge. "Some things do," she counters, her voice carrying an edge. "You were never one for violence, for weapons. And there it is, the core of her confusion, perhaps even her anger. The sister she knew had been studious and analytical, more likely to solve problems with flowcharts than force. The decision to join the military, to train for combat, to willingly enter violent situations, these choices seemed fundamentally at odds with the person she thought she knew. The goal was never violence, I explain carefully. It was protection, creating safe spaces in unsafe environments. Sometimes that requires force, but it's never the point. My mother speaks for the first time, her voice tight. "You could have protected people as a doctor, like your father, like we planned." The old argument, resurrected after 7 years. Some wounds never fully heal. I wasn't meant to be a doctor, I say simply. I found my own way to serve. Something flickers in my mother's eyes. Not acceptance, not yet, but perhaps the first acknowledgement that my path, though different from the one she envisioned, held its own kind of purpose. Lily, oblivious to the undercurrents, tugs at my sleeve. Can we do those exercises now, before you have to leave? I look to Ryan, who nods encouragement, then to Vanessa, whose resistance seems to have softened slightly in the face of her daughter's enthusiasm. Go ahead, my sister says with a small sigh. Just nothing too military, please. No shouting or crawling through mud. Lily giggles at the image. Mom, we're at a fancy hotel. There's no mud. As I rise to follow my niece to the lawn, I catch Sarah's subtle thumbs up across the table. This isn't reconciliation. Not yet. There are too many unspoken hurts, too many years of silence to overcome in a single weekend. But as I watch Lily attempt her first proper push-up, my father observing with unexpected pride from the terrace, I realize that perhaps bridges can be built even across the widest chasms. Not quickly, not easily, but deliberately, one painful conversation at a time. 7 years of absence won't be undone by one anniversary celebration. But for the first time since I stepped into that lakeside pavilion, I allow myself to consider that the story of my family might not be finished after all, that there might be new chapters waiting to be written, if we're all brave enough to try. Breakfast concludes with tentative plans for a boat ride later that morning. Lily races ahead to change into her swimsuit, excitement radiating from her small frame. The adults linger over coffee, the conversation stilted but no longer openly hostile. I should call the marina, Ryan says, checking his watch. Make sure they're holding the pontoon for us. As he steps away to make the call, Vanessa begins gathering empty plates, her movements precise and controlled. I rise to help, collecting scattered napkins and half-empty glasses. You don't need to do that, she says stiffly. Old habits. I continue clearing the table. Mom always made us clean up together, remember? A flicker of something, recognition, perhaps even nostalgia, crosses her face. You always complained about drying the dishes, said your hands got wrinkly. The memory surprises me, not because it's untrue, but because it's so ordinary, so disconnected from the intensity of our estrangement. For a moment, we're just sisters remembering a shared childhood chore. You always took too long with the soap, I counter, falling into the rhythm of an old argument. Everything had to be perfect. Because you rushed through everything. She deposits plates on a service cart, avoiding my eyes. Always in such a hurry to get to the next thing. There's truth in her assessment. I've always been forward-focused, impatient with tasks I deemed unnecessary. It served me well in the military, where efficiency was prized, but created friction in a household that valued thoroughness and tradition. We balanced each other out, I offer, a small acknowledgement of our complementary strengths. Vanessa pauses, hands stilling on the edge of the cart. Until we didn't. The simple statement carries the weight of 7 years of silence, of divergent paths and mutual incomprehension. Before I can formulate a response, Ryan returns, tucking his phone into his pocket. Boats confirmed for 11, he announces, either oblivious to or deliberately ignoring the tension between us. Gives everyone time to change and gather what they need. Sarah appears from inside the resort, having changed into a modest bathing suit covered by a light shirt. Lily just informed me that I'm required to jump off the boat at least once, she reports amused. Apparently it's a non-negotiable family tradition. Only if you want to, Vanessa corrects quickly, shooting a warning glance toward the lobby where Lily can be heard chattering excitedly with my father. She gets carried away sometimes. I don't mind, Sarah assures her. Though fair warning, I'm a terrible swimmer. More of a sinker, really. Jamie will save you, Lily declares, bounding onto the terrace in a bright yellow swimsuit, a towel cape flowing behind her. She's a hero, Remember? I'm thinking heroics won't be necessary for a controlled jump from a pontoon boat, I say lightly, ruffling her hair. But yes, I'll make sure Sarah doesn't sink. My mother appears last, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and linen pants that clearly aren't intended for swimming. Her lips tighten almost imperceptibly when she sees me helping with the cleanup. The staff, "We'll handle that, Jamie." "Just keeping busy," I reply, stepping away from the cart. "I'll change quickly." In my room, I swap my clothes for the simple black one-piece I'd packed on the off chance the hotel had a pool. The scar on my jawline is just one of many that mark my body now. A roadmap of service etched in silver-white lines across my torso, my left thigh, my right shoulder. I study them briefly in the mirror, wondering how visible they'll be to my family, how many questions they'll prompt. A soft knock at the connecting door precedes Sarah's entrance. She takes in my hesitation with a knowing glance. "Thinking about covering up?" she asks. "Considering it." "Your call, but for what it's worth. Those scars tell a story worth sharing." She passes me a light button-up shirt. "This works either way. Protection from sun or from questions." I take the shirt gratefully. "When did you get so wise?" "Around the third time I pulled shrapnel out of your stubborn hide," she replies with a wry smile. "Turns out trauma medicine teaches you a few things. About healing. Inside and out." We make our way to the marina together, following the path that winds along the lake shore. Ahead, Lily skips beside my father, her hand occasionally finding his with the easy familiarity of a beloved grandchild. My mother and Vanessa walk together, heads inclined in quiet conversation. Ryan waits for us, falling into step as we approach. "Fair warning," he says in a low voice. "Vanessa's a bit anxious about today. Worried about appearances, I think." "In what way?" I ask, confused. There's no audience here. No witnesses to our awkward family dynamics except the occasional passing. Resort guest. Ryan hesitates. "Your injuries, I think." She mentioned something about Lily asking questions, about how to explain. He gestures vaguely toward my body, clearly uncomfortable. Understanding dawns. Vanessa isn't worried about public perception, but about her daughters, about how to explain war wounds and violence to a child who still believes the world is fundamentally safe. "I'll keep it age-appropriate," I assure him. "Lily doesn't need details." Relief softens his features. "Thank you. Vanessa can be overprotective, but she means well." The marina attendant greets us with practiced cheer, helping us board a spacious pontoon boat with comfortable seating and a small canopy for shade. Lily immediately claims the spot at the bow, declaring herself the official lookout for sea monsters and treasures. Ryan takes the helm while my father settles beside him, offering quiet suggestions about navigation and the lake's specific features. My mother finds a shaded seat near the center, adjusting her hat against the mid-morning sun. Vanessa distributes water bottles and snacks from a cooler with the efficiency of someone accustomed to anticipating everyone's needs before they arise. I find myself at the stern, watching our wake carve temporary patterns in the lake's surface. Sarah joins me, leaning against the railing with casual ease. "Nice boat," she observes. "Nice lake. Nice family trying really hard to pretend everything's normal." "They're making an effort," I concede. That's something. More than something. Her gaze drifts toward Lily, who's now leaning precariously over the edge, pointing excitedly at something in the water. "She's worth it." Before I can respond, Lily abandons her post and bounds toward us, water droplets flying from her fingertips. "Auntie Jamie, there's a perfect jumping spot coming up. Dad says it's super deep and safe and no rocks or anything." Her enthusiasm is contagious, her expectation that I'll join her evident in every line of her body. Vanessa materializes beside her daughter, sunscreen in hand. "Lily, let's reapply before you get in the water." "But Mom, we're going to jump soon." "Sunscreen. First," Vanessa insists, already squeezing lotion onto her palm. "Turn around." As she applies sunscreen to Lily's shoulders, her gaze drifts to me, taking in the button-up shirt I still wear over my swimsuit. Something flickers in her expression. Concern. Perhaps, or curiosity. "You're swimming too, right, Aunt Jamie?" Lily asks, submitting impatiently to her mother's ministrations. Thinking about it, I hedge, aware of Vanessa's attention. "You have to. It's tradition." Lily twists away from her mother. Sunscreen application. Deemed sufficient. "Tell her, Mom. Everyone has to jump at least once." Vanessa's hands still, a complicated series of emotions crossing her face. "Your aunt might not want to swim," she says carefully. "She might be tired or—" "It's fine." I interrupt, making a decision. One jump, for tradition. Lily's whoop of delight draws attention from the front of the boat. My father turns, raising an eyebrow in silent question. I offer a small nod. "I'm okay. We're okay. This is happening." Ryan guides the boat to a sheltered cove where the water seems to deepen, the surface a darker blue that suggests depth. He cuts the engine, allowing us to drift gently in the calm water. "Swimming hole," he announces. "Who's first?" "Me and Aunt Jamie," Lily declares, already tugging at my hand. I unbutton my shirt slowly, hyper-aware of my family's gazes. The scars aren't garish, but they're obvious. The surgical line that tracks from my right collarbone across my chest, the irregular pattern of healed shrapnel wounds along my left side, the larger impact scar on my thigh where a secondary blast caught. Vanessa's sharp intake of breath is audible even over Lily's excited chatter. I meet her eyes briefly, seeing shock there, and something else. Guilt, perhaps, or simply the uncomfortable confrontation with a reality she'd chosen not to imagine. Lily, bless her innocent heart, notices nothing unusual. "Ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. I finish, jumping in tandem with my niece into the cool clarity of the lake. The water closes over my head, muffling all sound, suspending me in a moment of weightless calm. For a heartbeat, I'm nowhere and everywhere. Not a soldier, not a daughter, not a sister, just a body moving through water, connected to nothing and no one. Then Lily's hand finds mine underwater, tugging me back to the surface, back to the present, back to the complicated reality of family and history and tentative reconciliation. We emerge with synchronized gasps, Lily's delighted laughter echoing across the cove. "Again!" she demands, already swimming toward the boarding ladder at the back of the boat. I follow more slowly, aware of the eyes tracking my movements. When I reach the ladder, Ryan offers a hand up. His expression is carefully neutral, but his grip is firm and supportive. "Nice form," he says lightly, passing me a towel. "Lily's already planning your synchronized diving career." I accept the towel gratefully, wrapping it around my shoulders without immediately covering the scars. It's a small act of defiance, or perhaps just honesty. This is who I am now, marked by experiences my family chose not to share. "Jamie," my mother's voice uncharacteristically hesitant. She stands a few feet away, her hand half extended as if she'd reached out and then thought better of it. "Your shoulder, was that from—" "The Helmand operation," I confirm, keeping my voice neutral. "Secondary blast caught me as we were extracting the last civilians." She nods once, lips pressed tightly together. "Does it still pain you?" The question surprises me with its directness, its acknowledgement of ongoing consequences. "Sometimes. Weather changes, long drives. Nothing I can't manage." "I see." Her gaze drops to the deck, then lifts again with visible effort. "Your father probably has something that might help, for the pain." It's not an apology, not even close. But from a woman who spent 7 years pretending I don't exist, it's an overture. Awkward and inadequate, but real. "I have medication," I tell her. "But thank you." Sarah saves us from further stilted conversation by announcing her intention to jump next, making a dramatic production of her reluctance that draws everyone's attention. As she splashes inelegantly into the lake, I retreat to a seat in the shade, retrieving my button-up shirt more from habit than embarrassment. Vanessa approaches cautiously, settling into the adjacent chair. For several minutes, she says nothing, watching Lily demonstrate increasingly elaborate jumps for Sarah's admiring audience. "I didn't know," she says finally, her voice so low I have to lean closer to hear. "About the extent of your injuries." "No. Reason you would," I echo my earlier response to Ryan. "We haven't exactly been in touch." "That's not—" She stops, recalibrates. "I saw the news reports. They mentioned injuries, but not— I didn't realize how severe." I study her profile, the familiar curve of her cheek, the tension in her jaw that mirrors my own when I'm trying to control emotion. "The visible ones aren't the worst," I say with quiet honesty. "The hardware in my knee, the hearing loss in my eye, right ear, the nightmares. Those are harder to live with than the scars." Vanessa turns to face me fully, her eyes widening slightly at my candor. "You have nightmares? Still?" "Less than before. But yes." She looks away again, watching Lily climb the ladder for another jump. "I have them too," she admits, the words barely audible. "About you, about getting a call, or a man in uniform at the door, about a flag-draped coffin." The revelation stuns me. In all the scenarios I'd imagined over the years, anger, resentment, indifference, I'd never considered that Vanessa might have spent those same years afraid for me. "You never called," I say, the old accusation slipping out before I can stop. "It never wrote back." I know. Her fingers worry at the edge of her cover-up, twisting the fabric in a nervous gesture I remember from childhood. "I was angry at first, then scared. Then it had been so long that I didn't know how to bridge the gap. What to say?" "Hello would have worked," I reply, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Or "Are you alive?" Or literally anything other. Then 7 years of silence. "You're right." Her simple acknowledgement deflates my building anger. "I handled it badly." "We all did." Ryan calls from the helm, interrupting whatever might have come next. "Anyone hungry? There's a nice picnic spot, around the next bend." The moment breaks, Vanessa rising to help secure loose items before we get underway again. I remain seated, processing the brief exchange, uncertain whether it represents progress or just another layer of complication. The picnic spot turns out to be a small, sandy beach, accessible only by water, shaded by tall pines and equipped with a weather-worn but serviceable wooden table. Ryan and my father secure the boat while Vanessa and my mother unpack an impressive spread of sandwiches, salads, and fresh fruit. Lily insists on sitting beside me, her wet hair slowly drying into wild curls that remind me of myself at her age. She chatters about school, soccer, her best friend Emma who has 2 moms and a lizard named Spike. I listen with genuine interest, occasionally catching Vanessa watching us with an expression I can't quite decipher. "Do you have lizards?" Lily asks, biting into a sandwich. "No lizards," I confirm. "Sarah and I have a cat named Lieutenant Dan. He only has 3 legs." "Like from that old movie?" Ryan asks, surprised. "Sarah's idea of humor," I explain. "The cat was a rescue, already named when we got him." "We had a cat when we were kids," Vanessa says unexpectedly. "Jamie named him Navigator because he always knew where the sunbeams would hit the living room carpet." The memory surfaces, a sleek black cat who followed me everywhere, who slept on my bed despite our mother's objections, who lived to the impressive age of 17 before passing peacefully during my first year of college. I'd forgotten about. Navigator, I admit, surprised that Vanessa remembered this detail of our shared childhood. "You were devastated when he died," she continues. "Came home from college for the weekend just to bury him in the backyard. Made a little headstone from that flat rock you found at the river. You planted catnip on his grave, I recall, the memory suddenly vivid. Said he'd appreciate it more than flowers. A small, genuine smile touches Vanessa's lips. Mom was so annoyed when it spread all over her garden. For a moment, we're just sisters sharing a memory. The gulf of 7 years temporarily bridged by the recollection of a beloved pet and a childhood fondness neither time nor distance has fully erased. My father clears his throat, drawing our attention. Your mother and I have been thinking, he begins, his tone formal, but not cold. The Labor Day weekend is coming up in a few weeks. We usually host a barbecue at the lake house. If your schedule permits, Jamie, we'd like you to join us. The invitation hangs in the air, weighted with significance beyond a simple family gathering. Labor Day at the lake house is a Wilson family tradition, one I haven't participated in since before my enlistment. To be included now represents more than just a casual invitation. It's an acknowledgement of my place in the family, a tentative extension of belonging. Before I can respond, Lily bounces in her seat. Say yes. We can go swimming again, and Dad always brings the big inflatable. Slide, and Grandpa makes his famous ribs. I'll need to check my calendar, I hedge, overwhelmed by the unexpected offer and the enthusiasm in Lily's face. I have some work commitments. Of course, my father says smoothly. Just let us know. You could bring Sarah, my mother adds, surprising me further. If you'd like. I glance at Sarah, who gives an almost imperceptible nod. She's fine with whatever I decide. I'll think about it, I promise, which is more commitment than I'd expected to offer when I arrived at the anniversary celebration less than 24 hours ago. The conversation shifts to other topics: the upcoming school year, Ryan's recent promotion, a charity event my parents are helping to organize. I participate lightly, offering comments where appropriate, but mostly observing the familiar rhythms of family interaction, noting the places where I might fit if I chose to try. After lunch, Lily insists on showing me a perfect skipping stone she's found at the water's edge. I follow her down to the shore, conscious of Vanessa's watchful gaze but accepting the small separation from the group. Mom says you live far away, Lily says, testing the weight of her stone in her palm. About 3 hours, I correct. Not so far. She squints up at me, sunlight catching in her dark eyes, so like Vanessa's, like mine. But you never visit. The simple observation deserves an equally simple truth. Your mom and I had a disagreement a long time ago. Sometimes adults aren't very good at fixing things. Lily considers this, her young face serious. Like when Emma and I fought about who got to be team captain and didn't talk for a whole week. Something like that, I agree, smiling despite myself at the comparison. Except we let it go on much longer, which was silly of us. Super silly, she confirms, then adds with devastating directness. Are you fixed now? I look back toward the picnic table, where Vanessa sits in conversation with our mother, her posture more relaxed than I've seen it since my arrival. Not fixed, certainly, but perhaps no longer irreparably broken. We're working on it, I tell Lily honestly. These things take time. She nods with the sage acceptance of childhood, then abruptly changes subjects. Watch how far I can throw this rock. Her stone skips 3 times before sinking beneath the lake's surface, a respectable effort that she clearly expects me to match or exceed. I select my own stone carefully, feeling the smooth edges shaped by years of water and movement. This was my favorite thing to do at the lake when I was your age, I tell her, demonstrating the proper flick of the wrist. My stone skips 5 times, drawing an impressed gasp from my audience of 1. Teach me, she demands immediately. As I adjust her grip and stance, coaching her through the motion, I catch sight of Vanessa watching us from the picnic area. For once, her expression is unguarded, a complicated mixture of wistfulness and something that might almost be hope. 3 hours later, we've returned to the resort, showered and changed. Sarah and I are packing our few belongings, preparing for the drive home as promised. There's a new contact in my phone, Ryan's number, added with his insistence that I use it, that we not lose touch again regardless of how things stand with Vanessa. A knock at the door reveals Lily, dressed in a sundress that makes her look suddenly older, more like the young woman she'll eventually become than the child who jumped gleefully from the boat. "Mom says to tell you goodbye," she announces, stepping into the room without invitation. She's on the phone with someone about work stuff. The message lands like a small stone in my chest, not quite painful, but noticeable. After the tentative connections of the day, Vanessa has chosen not to see me off in person. "Tell your mom thank you for including us," I say, keeping my voice light for Lily's sake. "It was a lovely anniversary celebration." Lily nods seriously, then launches herself forward, wrapping her arms around my waist in a fierce hug. "You promise you'll come for Labor Day? Promise?" I return the embrace carefully, aware of the weight of such promises. "I'll do my very best." "That means yes," she declares with confidence. "Heroes always keep their promises." "Lily." Vanessa's voice from the doorway startles us both. She stands awkwardly at the threshold, phone in hand. "I thought I asked you to wait downstairs." "I wanted to make sure Aunt Jamie promised about Labor Day," Lily explains, unrepentant. Vanessa's gaze shifts to me, questioning. "Labor Day?" "Dad's invitation," I explain, "to the lake house." "Ah." Something complicated passes across her face. "Well, you're welcome, of course, if you want to come." The qualification hangs between us. If you want to come, not quite please come, or we want you there, but not a rescinding of the invitation either. "I'll check my schedule," I repeat, maintaining the careful neutrality we've established. Vanessa nods once, accepting this non-commitment. "Thank you for coming this weekend," she says formally. "It meant a lot to Ryan, and to Lily, but not to you, I think, but don't say." Instead, I simply nod, matching her politeness with my own. "Thank you for having us." Sarah emerges from the bathroom, bag in hand, her presence interrupting the awkward exchange. "All set, Jamie?" "Almost." I turn to Lily, crouching to her level for a final hug. "Be good for your parents, okay? Practice those rock-skipping skills." "I will." She squeezes my neck tightly, then releases me with reluctance. "Next time you can tell me hero stories. Mom says you saved a whole bunch of kids once." My gaze lifts to Vanessa's, surprise evident in my expression. She flushes slightly, but doesn't look away. "Lily asked," she says simply. I told her what I knew. The admission costs her something. I can see it in the tightness around her mouth, the way her fingers clench around her phone. Acknowledging my service, my accomplishments, means acknowledging the validity of the path I chose, the one she and our parents rejected so completely. "Thank you," I say quietly, sincere despite the inadequacy of the words. She nods once, then extends her hand to Lily. "Let's let Aunt Jamie finish packing. Dad's waiting for us downstairs." Lily protests briefly but complies, throwing one last wave over her shoulder as they depart. I listen to their footsteps recede down the hallway, the rise and fall of their voices growing fainter with distance. "Well," Sarah says finally, breaking the silence. "That was progress," I finish for her. "I think." "Definitely progress." She hefts her bag with a pointed glance at my own half-packed suitcase. "You about ready?" I look around the room, mentally checking for forgotten items. My gaze catches on the card table where my phone rests beside the worn photograph Mr. Harrington gave me. My unit in Helmand, faces bright with purpose despite the dust and danger that surrounded us. "Almost," I tell Sarah, reaching for the photo and tucking it carefully into my wallet. "Just need to grab one more thing." In the hallway, I pause outside my sister's room, hand raised to knock, uncertain what I intend to say. The door opens before I can decide, Vanessa appearing with keys in hand, clearly on her way out. "Jamie," she says, startled. "Did you forget something?" "No, I hesitate, the practiced speeches dissolving into inadequacy. "I wanted to say that it was good to see you. All of you, even with everything." She studies me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Even with everything," she echoes finally. I extend my hand, a formal gesture that feels simultaneously too much and not enough. After a brief hesitation, she takes it, her grip firmer than I expected. "Labor Day," she says, not quite a question. "I'll try, I promise." "Really try." She nods once, releasing my hand. We've exchanged no apologies, no explicit acknowledgments of past wrongs or promises of future reconciliation. Just a handshake, a tentative plan, a small bridge across a chasm 7 years in the making. It's not everything. It might, in the end, amount to nothing. But as I walk away, back straight and head high, the posture that carried me through war, zones and White House ceremonies alike, I feel the weight of something shift, rearranging itself into a new configuration that might, with time and care, bear the weight of family once more. 3 weeks later, I stand in my apartment, staring at the open duffel bag on my bed. Clothes lay folded but unplaced, waiting for a decision I've been circling for days. "You're overthinking this," Sarah calls from the living room where she's packing her own bag. "It's a family barbecue, not a deployment." "Feels similar?" I mutter, finally placing a stack of t-shirts in the bag. The Labor Day invitation has loomed large since our return from the anniversary celebration. In the intervening weeks, there have been tentative steps forward. A text from Ryan with a photo of Lily proudly displaying a rock that skipped 7 times. A brief call with my father about logistics for the weekend. Even a terse but civil email from Vanessa confirming that we're welcome to stay in the guest room at the lake house rather than booking a hotel. Sarah appears in the doorway, Lieutenant Dan cradled in her arms like a furry 3-legged baby. "The cat sitter is confirmed for the weekend. No more excuses." I'm not looking for excuses. I add my toiletry bag to the duffel. Just wondering if we're rushing things. One civil weekend doesn't erase 7 years. No, but it's a start. She deposits the cat on my bed, where he immediately settles on my neatly folded jeans. "Besides, you promised Lily. She made you pinky swear." She's right. During our goodbyes at the resort, Lily had solemnly extended her pinky finger, demanding a sacred oath that I would attend the Labor Day festivities. Even Vanessa had smiled at the ceremony, a brief, genuine expression that reminded me of the sister I'd once known. "Fine," I concede, gently moving the cat and zipping the bag. "But if this goes sideways, I'm blaming you." "Fair enough." Sarah hefts her own bag. "I'll drive the first leg. You can stress in the passenger seat." The drive to the lake house takes just under 3 hours, the final stretch winding through pine forests that open occasionally to reveal glimpses of water. My parents purchased the property when Vanessa and I were teenagers, a reward for my father's successful medical practice and a retreat from city life that became the backdrop for countless family gatherings. As we turn onto the familiar gravel driveway, memories surface like bubbles in still water. Summer nights around the fire pit, impromptu swimming competitions, lazy afternoons reading on the deck while cicadas hummed in the trees. Happy memories, untainted by the estrangement. "That came later." "Nice place," Sarah comments as the house comes into view. The structure is impressive without being ostentatious. A sprawling single story with large windows and a wraparound deck that stretches toward the water. It was my favorite place growing up, I admit, spotting several cars already parked near the garage. My parents' SUV, Ryan's sleek sedan, and 2 unfamiliar vehicles that must belong to other guests. Before we can retrieve our bags from the trunk, the front door flies open and Lily races down the steps, face alight with excitement. "You came. You really came." She barrels into me with the force of a small hurricane, arms encircling my waist. Grandpa said you might be busy with important hero stuff, but I told him heroes always keep their promises. I return her embrace, oddly moved by her unfettered joy at my presence. Pinky swears are serious business, I tell her solemnly. Wouldn't dream of breaking one. Ryan appears on the porch, raising a hand in welcome. Perfect timing, he calls. Steaks are going on the grill in 30 minutes. Sarah grabs our bags, nodding toward the house. Lead the way, tour guide, she tells Lily, who immediately seizes her free hand and begins pulling her toward the steps, chattering about the room they've prepared and the inflatable water slide already set up at the dock. I follow more slowly, taking in the unchanged exterior of the lake house, the blue shutters my mother insisted on, the porch swing where I used to read for hours, the wind chimes my father brought back from a medical conference in Arizona that still tinkle softly in the afternoon breeze. Welcome back, Ryan says quietly as I reach the porch. Vanessa's inside helping your mom with the salads. Your dad's down at the dock with some friends. I nod, bracing myself for whatever comes next. Who else is here? Just my brother and his wife and the Hendersons from the anniversary party. He gestures toward the unfamiliar cars. Small gathering this year. Which means fewer witnesses if things go badly, I think, but don't say. Thanks for the heads up. Inside, the house smells exactly as I remember. A mixture of pine, my mother's preferred lemon cleaning products, and something baking that fills the space with warmth. The great room opens to a kitchen where I spot my mother and Vanessa working side by side, their backs to the entrance. Look who made it, Ryan announces, causing both women to turn. My mother's face shifts through several expressions before settling on a cautious smile. Jamie, you're here. As promised, I reply, stepping further into the room. Need any help? We're almost finished, Vanessa says, her voice neutral but not unwelcoming. She wears her hair up in a casual ponytail, looking younger and more relaxed than she did at the anniversary celebration. Dad's been asking when you'd arrive. He's down at the dock if you want to say hello. The normalcy of the exchange, the simple directions, the lack of tension, catches me off guard. I'd prepared for strained politeness at best, not this easy acknowledgement of my presence as if I've been joining family gatherings all along. I'll head down in a minute, I say, glancing around the familiar space. Everything looks the same. Not everything, my mother replies, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Your father finally converted the old boathouse into a workshop last year, and we replaced some furniture after a pipe burst 2 winters ago. Small talk about home improvements. The kind of mundane conversation that happens between people who share a history without the weight of estrangement. I play along, asking about the repairs, commenting on the new sofa, pretending this is normal rather than the most surreal homecoming I could have imagined. Sarah reappears with Lily, both of them laughing about something I missed. This kid is giving me a run for my money, she announces. She's already challenged me to a cannonball contest. Lily, why don't you show Jamie and Sarah where they're staying so they can freshen up before dinner? Vanessa suggests, her gaze meeting mine briefly. The blue room at the end of the hall. The blue room. My old room from teenage summers. The one with the window seat overlooking the lake and the bookshelf still filled with dog-eared paperbacks I'd collected over the years. The fact that Vanessa has placed us there rather than in the generic guest room feels significant, though I'm not sure exactly what it signifies. Lily leads us down the hallway, pointing out features along the way with the pride of a miniature real estate agent. That's Mom and Dad's room, and that's Grandma and Grandpa's room, and that's the bathroom with the really good shower, and that's... We get the idea, tour guide, I interrupt gently, amused by her enthusiasm. Thank you for showing us. The blue room is exactly as I remember, with one significant addition. Someone has placed a framed photograph on the bedside table. I pick it up, studying the image with surprise. It shows a teenage Vanessa and me at the lake, arms slung around each other's shoulders, laughing at something long forgotten. Mom found that in the old photo albums, Lily explains, watching my reaction. She said it should go in here because it's a good memory. I set the photo down carefully, something tight unwinding in my chest. It is a good memory. Can we go? Swimming now? Lily bounces on her toes, already shifting focus with the admirable flexibility of childhood. The water slide is all set up. Give us 10 minutes to change, Sarah tells her. We'll meet you at the dock. Once Lily departs, Sarah raises an eyebrow at the photograph. Interesting choice of decoration. Very, I agree, unzipping my bag to find my swimsuit. Vanessa hates that haircut she had that summer. She wouldn't let anyone take pictures of her for months, but she put it in your room anyway. Apparently. I change quickly, wondering what other surprises this weekend might hold. The dock bustles with activity when we arrive. My father deep in conversation with another man I vaguely recognize, Ryan helping a boy who must be his nephew inflate a giant floating unicorn, and Lily already splashing in the shallows with another child. Jamie. My father spots me, waving us over. Come meet Tom Henderson. He was just asking about your work with the security consultancy. The normal greeting. The casual introduction. It's as if we've been doing this dance for years instead of cautiously re-establishing contact after nearly a decade of silence. I play along, shaking hands with Tom, answering questions about risk, assessment in conflict zones, accepting a cold drink from a cooler as if I never left, as if I always belonged. Sarah dives into the lake with characteristic lack of grace but genuine enthusiasm, drawing laughs from the children. I remain on the dock, still acclimating to the strange normalcy of it all. It's weird, isn't it? Vanessa's voice startles me. She's appeared at my side, dressed in a modest navy swimsuit with a light cover-up. Having you here again. A bit? I admit. Everyone's being so normal. We agreed to try, she says simply. All of us. For Lily's sake at first, but also. She hesitates, gazing out at the water where Sarah is now helping the children climb onto the floating unicorn. Also for us, maybe? The admission costs her something. I can see it in the tension around her mouth, the careful way she doesn't quite meet my eyes. Vanessa has always struggled to acknowledge mistakes, to admit uncertainty. It's a start, I offer, echoing Sarah's earlier words. A good one. She nods once, then surprises me by adding, You should know that Ryan's been meeting with your friend Jack Harrington. They're working on a support initiative for families of fallen service members. He was very impressed with you. The news catches me off guard. Jack didn't mention it. It's still in the planning stages. Ryan wanted to understand more about what military families need. She tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture I remember from childhood. He asked me to help, but I realized I don't know enough. About what you went through, what Sarah went through. The implicit question hangs between us, an invitation to share more, to bridge the gap of understanding that 7 years of silence has created. It's complicated, I say finally, hard to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it. I'd like to try, she replies, her voice quieter but firm, to understand, if you're willing to tell me. Before I can respond, Lily's voice carries across the water. Mom! Aunt Jamie! Watch me slide! The moment breaks as we turn to watch Lily launch herself down the inflatable slide, her delighted shriek echoing across the lake. Vanessa smiles, genuine and unguarded, and for a moment I see the sister I remember, the one who taught me to French braid my hair, who smuggled candy into movie theaters in her purse, who cried at sad commercials and laughed until she snorted at stupid jokes. She's fearless, I observe as Lily surfaces with a splash. Like her aunt, Vanessa replies, the comparison offered without rancor. It terrifies me sometimes. That's parenthood, I hear. constant terror masked by smiles and sunscreen application. She laughs, a brief but genuine sound. Something like that. The afternoon unfolds in a series of small, ordinary moments. Swimming races with the children, my father grilling steaks with scientific precision, my mother fussing over proper table settings on the deck. Sarah integrates seamlessly, charming Ryan's brother with stories from her pararescue days and helping my mother carry dishes without being asked. As twilight approaches, someone suggests a bonfire. The children are dispatched to collect kindling, under adult supervision while my father and Ryan arrange larger logs in the fire pit near the shore. I find myself alone on the deck, watching the activity below, still feeling slightly dislocated from the easy familial scenes unfolding before me. "It gets easier," my mother says, appearing beside me with 2 mugs of coffee. She offers one to me, the peace offering accepted with murmured thanks. Being back, being part of things again. "Does it?" I ask, not unkindly but genuinely curious. "How would you know?" She looks away, watching my father demonstrate proper fire-building technique to an attentive Lily. "Because I've had to rejoin this family too, in a way." At my questioning glance, she continues, "After you left, after we drove you away, things changed. Vanessa pulled away too, in smaller ways. Your father retreated into his work. We were technically still a family, but the connections were damaged. The admission surprises me. In my imagination, they had simply closed ranks after my departure, continuing as a perfect unit of 3 rather than an awkward 4. What changed? I ask. Lily, mostly. A small smile softens her features. Children have a way of demanding authenticity. She started asking questions we couldn't answer, seeing gaps we'd tried to paper over. She turns to face me directly. And then there was the Medal of Honor ceremony. I tense slightly, remembering her absence, the knowledge that she couldn't bear to watch even on television. I couldn't watch, she confirms, reading my expression. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much. Because seeing you standing there, being honored for courage I couldn't even imagine, made me face what I'd done, what we'd all done, in cutting you off. The honesty catches me off guard, as does the emotion in her voice. My mother has always been the most reserved of us all, the keeper of appropriate appearances, the enforcer of family norms. Why now? I ask, the same question I posed to my father at the dock 3 weeks ago. After all this time, she considers her answer carefully, gaze returning to the gathering below. Because regrets don't age well, she says finally. They grow heavier, not lighter. And because families aren't supposed to be incomplete, we've been incomplete for 7 years, Jamie. The fire catches below, flames leaping up against the darkening sky. Cheers erupt from the children, echoed by the adults who step back to admire their handiwork. I spot Sarah accepting a marshmallow. Skewer from Lily. Watch as Vanessa adjusts the girl's sweater against the evening chill. See my father's head thrown back in laughter at something Ryan has said. I can't promise it will be easy, I tell my mother. There's a lot of water under the bridge. I know. She hesitates, then adds quietly. But bridges can be rebuilt, can't they? Even after storms wash them away. Before I can respond, Lily's voice carries up from the fire pit. Aunt Jamie! Sarah! We're making s'mores! Come down before the little kids eat all the chocolate! Duty calls, my mother says with a small smile. Better not keep her waiting. She's as impatient as you were at that age. We descend to the fire, together, not touching but walking in step, the distance between us measured now in inches rather than years. The night unfolds in firelight and laughter, ghost stories and sticky marshmallow fingers, Lily dozing off against my side as the hour grows late. She's out, I whisper to Vanessa, who sits across the fire circle, her face golden in the flickering light. She's been vibrating with excitement since you confirmed you were coming, she replies, moving around to help transfer her sleeping daughter. Barely slept last night. Takes after her mother, I observe as Vanessa gathers Lily into her arms. You used to stay up all night before beach trips, remember? Packing and repacking your bag. A smile touches her lips. You used to throw everything in a duffel 10 minutes before we left. Still do, I admit, nodding toward Sarah, who is deep in conversation with Ryan's brother about wilderness rescue techniques. Drives Sarah crazy. Vanessa adjusts Lily's weight against her shoulder. I need to put her to bed. But maybe after... we could talk? Just us? The invitation hangs between us, weighted with possibility. I'd like that, I say finally. She nods once, then carries Lily toward the house, her figure silhouetted against the warm light spilling from the windows. I remain by the fire, watching embers spiral upward into the star-filled sky, feeling something long-knotted slowly begin to unravel. Later, when the guests have departed and the house has grown quiet, Vanessa finds me on the dock. I sit with feet dangling above the water, watching moonlight create a silver path across the dark surface of the lake. She settles beside me, leaving a careful few inches between us. Lily's favorite place too, she comments, nodding toward the dock. She says the stars look bigger from here. Smart kid. I lean back on my hands, studying the night sky. She reminds me of you, you know, the good parts. The good parts, Vanessa repeats softly. I wasn't sure you remembered those. I remember everything, I tell her honestly. The fights and the friendship, the competition and the collaboration, all of it. She pulls her knees to her chest, a defensive posture that contradicts her next words. I've missed you, Jamie. Even when I was angriest, even when I told myself I was better off without the reminder of everything you rejected, I still missed my sister. The admission hangs in the night air between us, as delicate and precious as the soap bubbles we used to blow from the dock as children, watching them drift over the water until they burst against reality. I never rejected you, I say finally. Just the path that was chosen for me, there's a difference. I see that now. She turns to look at me directly, moonlight silvering the familiar contours of her face. It took watching Lily develop her own fierce independence to understand. She's nothing like what I expected, nothing like the daughter I imagined I'd have. And she's perfect exactly as she is. She is pretty great, I agree, sensing there's more Vanessa needs to say. When you joined the army, I felt abandoned, she continues, confirming my intuition. Like you were choosing something, anything, over the life we were supposed to share. The medical practices side by side, the families in the same neighborhood, all the plans Mom and Dad had for us. Their plans, I emphasize gently. Not mine, never mine. I know that now. She looks down at her hands, then back at the water. But I didn't understand then how much courage it took to walk away from their expectations, from their approval. I've spent my whole life chasing that approval, Jamie. Even now, with my own family, my own life, I still measure everything against what they might think. The confession surprises me with its rawness, its honesty. Vanessa has always presented a seamless front to the world, her insecurities carefully hidden beneath layers of accomplishment and social grace. You don't need their approval, I tell her. You never did. Says the woman who earned a Medal of Honor without their blessing, she replies with a hint of her old spirit. Easy for you to say. Not easy at all, I correct, shifting to face her more directly. The hardest thing I've ever done was walk away from this family. Harder than any mission, any rehabilitation, any medal ceremony. Because I knew what it would cost me. Us, she says quietly. What it would cost us. Yes. We sit in silence for a moment, the gentle lapping of water against the dock pilings the only sound. When Vanessa speaks again, her voice is steadier. I can't change the past 7 years, she says. Neither of us can. But maybe we can do better with the next 7, and the 7 after that. One day at a time, I suggest, offering the wisdom of countless therapy sessions and recovery groups. Start small. Start with Labor Day weekend, she agrees. And maybe Christmas, if you're not deployed? She stops, flushing slightly. Sorry. Old habits. If you're not working, I mean. I understood, I assure her. And no deployments in my future. Just consulting work, training missions occasionally, mostly stateside now. Good, she hesitates, then adds. Lily would love to have you at her soccer games sometimes, if you're interested. She's actually pretty good. I'd like that. The simple acceptance of her invitation feels monumental. A bridge extended across 7 years of silence. And maybe you could visit us sometime, see where we live, meet Lieutenant Dan. The 3-legged cat, she recalls, smiling. Lily would never forgive me if we didn't accept that invitation. From the house, a light flicks on in an upstairs window. Someone else still awake in the quiet hours of night. Vanessa glances back, then returns her gaze to the water. We should sleep, she says, though she makes no move to rise. It's late. In a minute, I reply, unwilling to break the fragile peace we've established. The stars do look bigger from here. She follows my gaze upward, her profile softened by darkness and memory. They always have, she agrees. We sit in companionable silence, 2 sisters on a dock under a canopy of stars, the distance between us measured now not in years or grievances, but in inches of weathered wood, a gap small enough to bridge with an extended hand should either of us find the courage to reach. And for now, that possibility is enough. If you've enjoyed this journey with Jamie and her family, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories of courage, reconciliation, and the complicated beauty of family relationships. Every week, I share new narratives that explore the depths of human connection and the strength it takes to rebuild what's been broken. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of storytellers and story lovers, because everyone deserves a second chance at belonging, and every family has a story worth telling.